Hello. So for the topic of daycare, I think it's very different for everyone and everyone's situation. But for us, my husband quit his job about 3 days after my daughter was born, and it was just we didn't know how we were going to do things because I was in one hospital, my daughter was in another hospital. We had a 2-year-old son, and we just needed someone to shuttle everyone around, to bring my son to see me, to bring me eventually to my daughter, and so he ended up quitting his job. I live in France. Here in France, we get 2 months of paid maternity leave. So my daughter was born August 20th, and I needed to be back to work on October the 20th. So I did. I went back to work on October 20th, and my husband was still home. And it was the big question we kept asking ourselves: when do we put our daughter in daycare? And it's very competitive in France to even get a space in daycare. It's the moment you find out you're pregnant, you apply for a spot, and it's very complicated and a lot of administrative paper. So we were really lucky in that we got a spot, a magical spot for our daughter in a daycare, and the director of the daycare is a retired nurse. So she had experiences with babies with colostomies, and she had agreed to take us on. But they could have at any point in time said no. And they also agreed to do like a personal training day with all of their staff, so everyone was able to help Haley if she had any issues. The one thing was, if she needed a change of her complete system, if she had a leak, someone needed to come in and do that. So either my husband, myself, or my mother-in-law would need to come in and do that. The daycare would not, but they would just take care of her. So we didn't know what to do, because our biggest thing was, if you put your child in daycare, they're surrounded by all these other kids, all these other germs. And what we experienced with our son, who is 2 years old, still in the same daycare, was he was just constantly sick. He had the chicken pox before he's 1 year old. He had every flu, cold, just sickness you can imagine in his first 2 years of life. And we were living, as I'm sure most of you are, surgery to surgery. So our first surgery was delayed because my daughter had a stuffy nose, and our second surgery was delayed because my daughter had a stuffy nose. So we were just living in this fear that we wouldn't have closure done before my daughter started walking, before it just got extra difficult. We wanted to get everything done as soon as possible. So we chose for our family not to put her in daycare until all surgeries were done. We were lucky because I make enough money that was a possibility for us, and my husband was a superstar and stayed at home and took care of my daughter. And then she had her surgery, and 2 weeks later she was in daycare. We were also really lucky because the daycare held our spot all that time, given her special circumstance. So we were just super lucky, and we had the ability to keep her home, which for us took off a lot of stress, because I know the surgeon said we didn't need to do this, and a lot of people online say just live your life and don't get too focused on the surgeries. But we really isolated and put our little girl in a bubble just to keep her strong and healthy to get the surgeries done, because we didn't want delays. And I don't know what it's like where you come from, but if our surgery's delayed, they're not going to do the surgery tomorrow. It's going to be another month or 2 or more of a wait list just to get into surgery. So we just wanted to get the surgeries done. Now she's in daycare. She's been in daycare for maybe 6 months, a bit more. She's thriving. She absolutely loves it. She actually has a really solid immune system, I think maybe because of everything she's been through. So she's only been sick maybe once or twice, as opposed to every single week like my son was. So that's our story for daycare.